Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining today's webinar, Cultivating Futures Green Careers Begin with School Gardens. This is a webinar co-hosted by Green Umbrella, Regional Collaborative, and the National Farm to School Network. So welcome everyone. All right. So my name is Trisha Bautista. I'm a programs director at the National Farm to School Network. I'm calling in from Chicago, Illinois. And I just wanted to share a little bit about the National Farm to School Network. So many of you may already be familiar with our organization. We're a national organization and a network of farm to school practitioners from across the country. And NFSN envisions a nation in which farm to school is an essential component of local and regional food systems. Later on, I'm going to talk about what farm to school is and what the core components or three pillars are. But essentially, we seek to increase access to local food, nutrition education, and improve children's health and strengthen local farms and cultivate communities. We are a network that really engage many practitioners across the country around these very concepts and support our local food system. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, we'd like this webinar to be a little bit interactive. There'll be some polls here and some opportunities for you to share ideas via chat. The very first poll I would like to share with you all today is a question about which best describes your current role or interest in connecting students to green careers. So this is going to allow us to see like who's in the room and what titles or positions you may have in the movement launch. All right, so you should have a little box in front of you that will allow you to choose just a single choice for today, just to kind of see who's in the room. Which best describes your role or interest in connecting students to green careers? So we have K-12 educator or school staff, school district administrator. I love how fast the bar graphs are filling up here. Amazing. Nonprofit or community organization is kind of the main one right now. City or local government official. Are you from the CTE world? So career and tech education. Are you a coordinator for that? Do we have any farmers or producers in the room? Students? And if none of these choices apply to you, we welcome you to share your title or connection to this topic in the chat. It's amazing. Local food distribution, educator and teacher market gardens, an extension. Yes, used to work for the University of Arizona Extension. So please, I'm going to give this one more minute and I'll end the poll. But for our speakers today, it looks like we have a lot of nonprofit or community-based organization members in the room, K-12 educators. Let's see what's coming up in the chat for people. Curriculum designer, farmer, a chef, wonderful. Department of Ag, university faculty, some extension folks in the room, a consultant. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end this poll. Thanks for participating. Again, this is just a way for us to see and share the results here. Who's in the room? All right. Moving us on to, thank you for participating in that. So I wanted to share a little bit more about our network. So this is actually how I know Cynthia Walters from Green Umbrella, but NFSN is a hub for resources, networking, and advocacy. Like I mentioned earlier, we work to connect people to resources within the farm to school movement. So a lot of the folks in our network are farm to school and food systems practitioners. We work to connect people to each other through a variety of our networking and gathering opportunities. Last week, we just had our huge farm to school movement celebration. We call that the movement meeting. And we also have opportunities for communities of practice convenings, and we do a lot of policy and advocacy work. NFSN is a network of over 550 partner organizations from across all states, including U.S. territories and sovereign nation. When I first joined the organization in 2021, we were at about 200 partner organizations, and we have tremendously grown. So hopefully we continue to connect with folks and invite some of you to join the network. We have a number of representation from K-12 sites. So we have about 206 K-12 partners and also early care education organizations and settings. And many of our partners are place-based, so those local organizations, community-based organizations. Like I mentioned earlier, Cynthia who you will meet in just a moment, from the Green Umbrella Regional Climate Collaborative, is a network partner. And this is one of the things I love the most about the work, is connecting and partnering with folks like Cynthia and Mike and elevating systems change work, which you'll see more of later, and fostering these types of connections. So super energized to have you all here today. Thank you so much for joining. So what is Farm to School? Many of you may already be familiar with this, but Farm to School, for those that don't know, is really a comprehensive effort, a systems change approach that connects communities, children, and families to fresh, healthy, local foods and to those that grow them. So our farmers or producers, right, or distributors, and really understanding where our food comes from and how we can enable change within institutions like schools to ensure that we're taking care of our land and incorporating local produce in any way that we can. And Farm to School has 3 core pillars. As you can see here, we have school gardens. So this is the main topic for today. These are the ways in which students learn about food, agriculture, nutrition education in a really experiential way. So they get their hands dirty with the soil. They learn about how to see how a plant can grow from seeds to sprouting and how that can feed our bodies. Education is another second pillar of Farm to School, and this is the ways in which we integrate nutrition education or food and agriculture curriculum into the classroom, aligning that with some of the core standards of school systems. And last but not least is really the core part of our systems change is procurement. So these are the ways that practices are being promoted to integrate and allow for like purchasing of local fruits and vegetables to be served in cafeteria, or even do some promotions around doing taste testings in the cafeteria to promote like a nearby farm, for instance. Farm field trips is another opportunity to enhance that. So now positioning the connection between Farm to School and pathways to green careers, which is our main topic for today. For one, both opportunities or both approaches emphasize environmental stewardship and sustainable local food systems. So you'll hear later from Mike about what that looks like from the student and community perspective. Farm to School teaches young kiddos and students and their families about where food comes from. At the same time, from what I'm learning, working with Mike and Cynthia over the past few weeks to prepare for this webinar, it's Green Careers is really sustaining or creating that effort to prepare students for jobs that care for our land, foster sustainable agriculture opportunities, integrate conservation and environmental studies, even in middle and high school, which was so impressive to learn about. So here I've kind of just set up how the 3 pillars of Farm to School align with creating pathways to green careers. As I mentioned earlier, there's not one definition of Farm to School, as we like to say at NFSN, but together the 3 pillars work to foster skills, mindsets for innovation. And because Farm to School is at the intersection of many different specializations or expert topics. We have public health, food, agriculture. It really allows for that like collaborative approach to this type of work. School gardens is really a way for building students real world and applicable skills, so they can, through school garden efforts, as many of you know, because this is the work that you're doing, you teach kiddos and high school, middle school students about soil health management, composting, if that's an effort that you're doing, water reduction through irrigation processes. I've seen some schools that actually collaborate with students in their schools to like set up mini irrigation systems. Education, so making sure that we're aligning that with STEM or environmental sciences. And then finally, local procurement, connecting students with local farms and sustainable food systems. So yeah, so with that, I just wanted to kind of ground us on who we are, one, as an organization, who the National Farm to School Network is, how you can stay connected with our network if you're not already, and then what are the connections, right? And in a moment, I'm going to pass the mic over to Mike and Cynthia, who's going to be our main speakers for today. But I did want to invite some of you, if you're not already sharing in the chat, what are your experiences with engaging students in food and agriculture? Again, we're going to be compiling your responses. We'll try to respond to them as much as we can, but this is a really good way for our speakers to know your experiences in this space and this topic area. So I'm going to give us a couple minutes here, or a couple moments here to respond in the chat. What are your experiences with engaging students in food and agriculture? And then without further ado, I'm so excited to pass on the mic over to my colleagues, Cynthia and Mike. Cynthia, let's start with you. Tell us about your work.
Thank you, Trisha. It has been amazing to work with you the last couple of months on this and some other projects. So just excited to be here. I have been so much a part of Farm to School when I was a classroom teacher for over 2 decades. And now I just am really trying to navigate the policy, and Farm to School does an amazing job of really keeping us up to date in this very chaotic crisis time. So I'm very appreciative and feel very fortunate to be here. So I'm Cynthia Walters. You can see where, oh, over here, no, over there, Green Umbrella Regional Climate Collaborative. I'm the Green and Healthy Schools Director. And I work with school districts in the region, in the greater Cincinnati region, and primarily with Cincinnati Public Schools. And I have the honor to work with Michael Turner. It is who I also call a friend. And Mike, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, thank you, Cynthia, and thank you, Trisha, for this opportunity. I am Mike Turner, and I have a dual role in Cincinnati Public Schools, which is, by the way, for those of you outside of Ohio, Cincinnati Public Schools is the second largest school district in the state. We serve about 35,000 students across a pretty big geographic area. My two roles are the director of career tech, and I'm also the director of strategic planning. And many times those two roles have absolutely nothing to do with each other, but there are times where there are those intersections, especially in really moving students to college and career readiness. And that is a big part of our strategic plan and a very big part of career tech. And so I'll get an opportunity here in a minute to talk more about career tech in our district. But thanks for tuning in today.
All right, and then the next slide, and I'm going to go ahead and provide some background information, kind of the behind the scenes of how this all kind of transpired and our partnerships deepened between Green Umbrella and Cincinnati Public Schools. So we are very fortunate to have the Green Cincinnati plan to work with here in Cincinnati. Not only that, with this partnership between Cincinnati Public Schools and partner organizations, we have an incredible wealth of partner organizations dedicated to environmental education, health agencies who are attending to the health and well-being of school communities. It's a marvelous partnership that we're all working together to really address the needs of students in the school community and surrounding neighborhoods and communities. And there are two goals that fall within the Green Cincinnati plan that are included here in this slide, so that all students and public schools have access to outdoor learning, and that students are trained for the green workforce. So here I provide a little bit more information about the work that Green Umbrella does. And Cincinnati Public Schools, their existing frameworks that they're working on now and are in progress, like their sustainability school grounds plan. The district wellness policy is already an existing framework, and of course, career tech education. So in the next slide, this is basically how we're being strategic about doing the work. So this involves the things I do on a day-to-day basis. So as Mike said, we're trying to be strategic is a key word here. So we have a steering committee, and these are some of the other committees that they're the partner-led, Green Umbrella leads, but it is a collaborative with the city members as well as community members. And you can see all the different subcommittees and initiatives that we're working on, including green access mapping rather. And of course, what we're focusing on today is green workforce development. And in the next slide, so in my opinion, and I think many others who are on this call, that our ultimate goal is green and healthy schools. So it's sounding like many of you are kind of in this first space, in the outdoor learning, environmental education. Maybe you're in the workforce development. Maybe you're even doing some wellness. But if you are here, right, with environmental education, your role, your program will become somewhat more sustainable and embedded if we're also looking at these existing frameworks that are already within systems. So when we talk about green workforce development, when we're talking about district wellness policy, we all know those are essential components, but really are going to allow us as educators, us in all the different backgrounds that have been called out here, to really embed and make our work sustainable. All right, and in the next slide, so we really feel that ag ed career pathways are a vehicle for systems change. In this case, we're talking about PSE. So I do want to call out a few reasons why, especially because of why you're here. Partner organizations are the essential component, especially when it comes to work-based learning, which is Mike's going to talk to you about. So we all have a role, and we have the power, the action, the energy, and these programs, and your role is needed more now than ever. That wellness policy I'll talk a little bit about later, and I will share some things with you about that and how that again is another system that will help sustain. But basically what I'm saying is we have existing structures in place for district-wide systemic change, and ag ed career pathways are going to get us there. So I'm going to go ahead, unless Mike, you have something else to add to that, but I bet you probably want to dive in.
Sure. So I noticed in our breakdown of who's in this that there's not very many people who kind of live in the career and technical education world. And so it's really a good opportunity to kind of touch on how we do this in Ohio. But I will say that Career Tech is a national program that is really federally managed as far as some of the compliance things that we need to do. States do have some choices in what they require through their own departments of education. It is a federally funded program, and in Ohio, we also receive state funding. And so no matter where you go for career tech across the country, typically there's a lot of focus on high demand careers, very skills focused in what is delivered. In Ohio, we cannot have a career tech program unless students have the opportunity to earn college credit. That could be through College Credit Plus, which is what we call it in Ohio, or it could be called dual enrollment in some of your states. There are also other ways that students can earn college credit in career tech other than it being dual enrollment, at least in Ohio. Also, industry recognized credentials. We have hundreds upon hundreds of credentials that people have applied for and gotten them approved in our state. That is also a focus for this. In Cincinnati Public Schools, we have more than 20 career tech pathways that covers about 13 career clusters. Students in our district can select what high school they go to. We're a high school of choice district. And so if a student wants to go to the other side of town because they like that high school, or they want to go to the career tech programming in that particular school, then as long as there's room, they can do so. We have numerous pathways, as I said, but some to mention are health, construction, IT, manufacturing, and I will say agriculture. Even though we are an urban district, a lot of people are surprised that we have so many agriculture pathways. We have agriculture in 1/4 of our high schools across the district, only behind health. As far as the footprint, health is in 5 of our high schools. Work-based learning, as Cynthia pointed out, is really, really important, and we could not do this without people from outside of the school. In Ohio, students can be assisted with graduating through work-based learning hours. Ohio is very outcome based on state testing, and if students don't meet certain thresholds on state mandated testing, they can follow a career option to graduate. And so work-based learning of a certain number of hours of allowable allowable hours can be used to assist in graduating. Work-based learning goes anywhere from very organized internships, pre-apprenticeships, all the way down to job shadowing. I will say job shadowing does not count as a work-based learning hour experience, but we know that even down into the middle school level, job shadowing is really, really important. We have very, very specific job readiness activities for 11th and 12th graders in our district where they are getting real on the job experience. We have grown those dramatically over the last few years, and right now we're in the 300 range of students who are benefiting from organized internships. In Ohio, every district is required to have a business advisory council, and on that council there are partners who make up the council, and they give us advice. They advise us. I'm proud to say that our district is only one of 3 in the entire state that just received the highest stars possible, which is 4. But we also received that with distinction, and largely in part because of our work-based learning opportunities. And then there's a variety of ways that we communicate this out to families in the community about what's available. We have focus area maps. If you go to our website, you can find out where we have programming across the district, because we do want this to be open to everyone, and we do not have any barriers to entry in our district. We do not look at GPA. We don't look at behavior. We don't look at disability status. We don't look at English learner status. We accept students based on their desire to be in the program. And agriculture is very popular. So this is where the partners are really important. And I can only speak to Ohio, but in Ohio, if an activity is going to be an official work-based learning activity to count for student hours, we have to have a triangle that is fulfilled. One part of the triangle, the most important part of the triangle, is the student. Everything is about the student. Obviously, the school needs to be part of this to vet partners to make sure that it's a good fit. But we cannot do this without external partners. And so that doesn't mean that a partner is there every time, like in agriculture, every time a student picks up a shovel, or they may milk a goat or work at the zoo. We have a zoo-based program in Cincinnati Public with Cincinnati Zoo. They work with I can't say zookeepers. It seems like zookeepers on zoo capers. How's that sound? They work with zookeepers on a daily basis, and that counts as work-based learning hours because they are working with an external partner. But again, this doesn't mean that someone has to be holding their hand. They could check in monthly. They could work with groups of students on reflections. And so we're just so proud of the partners in our area in agriculture in particular, because many times our internships are only one or two students because they're community partners. It's not a big company. It's not like it's a hospital that might have 55 interns at one time. We certainly know that a lot of the governmental influences recently have impacted funding for some of our partners. They have really stood strong and tried to still continue internships, even though they may have lost staff members. And so thank you to all of you on this webinar who are partners in your part of uh, the country, or I actually saw somebody on here from Africa. So thank you as well for what you do, even across in a different country. So industry recognized credentials, I'm just going to give you an example. We have students at the Zoo Academy who are earning vet tech credentials. We have some other credentials that might be dealing with pesticides or with food safety. But in our part of Ohio, we're not in a heavy agricultural area as some districts may be in the more rural parts of the state or even the central part of the state. But because in career tech, student leadership is so important, we have career tech student organizations, or CTSOs. We have Future Farmers of America chapters. That has been a journey. I will say we are a high minority district, and typically when our students first joined FFA, they were going into state meetings where they did not look like anybody else in the meeting. And so our staff worked with chapters to be able to pull together like student leaders to help them feel more comfortable and to feel embraced. And so that has been just a wonderful, wonderful view of what our student leaders across the state have done with our student leaders. But one of the packages that we use, not just in agriculture, but in other pathways, are things that our business partners have asked us for. They've said, we can help with the technical side of things once we hire a student. We need people who can come in and be part of a team and have leadership skills and all of that. So we do run many students through a 12-point package that is leadership excellence, Lean Six Sigma yellow belt, and then green belt. And those are industry recognized. And that really helps with the leadership that Future Farmers of America instills in our students as a CTSO.
So I am super amazed and not surprised by all the incredible work, and I'm just get so distracted by the chat rather, because of what I'm reading, and it is just it goes back and forth how inspirational this work is and how exciting this is a way to just really activate and maybe do something. We're going to talk about an action steps real soon here, but let's just look at this in terms of building a pathway. what goes into that? Where can you, as a partner, organization, educator, internal, external, where can you plug in? So let's just let's try to be interactive here and work together, and really see what is happening out there and what are the possibilities. Where do you think in one of these, and you can just put the letter A, B, C, D, or E, you don't have to spell it all out, is where do you think you would be most effective, or where do you see participating in this pathway? And as you're doing that, some of the things to think about for A, we talk about high school pathways, but how about middle school? We'll talk about a middle school course that's happening in CPS. How about at the elementary level? If there's a course at middle school, what skill building can be done to correlate that and add to that pathway? Think about a committee. Amazing. It can start very grassroots. It can start with a couple priorities, but start a committee that is aimed to really explore the expertise in your area to bring people together to do the work, because not all of us have all the answers. Maybe it's an internship or simply a job shadowing, or specifically a work-based learning. And I saw someone used to be a school counselor on the call, which is very great to see, because career counselors are so crucial to really getting kids excited about ag ed, environmental based green careers at a young age. So think about the training of counselors to really better understand what are the possibilities, and what are the needs for skills and etc. For students to possess as they move through this pathway. And in the next slide, it's kind of like a checkpoint here. But how I look at this, if we're working on a pathway, if this committee is doing that, CTE, if we're expanding the pathway, these are the components that are essential for all schools, for all students to have throughout that pathway. So here is where we really are attending to equity across the district. When some of us are working at individual schools in a silo, this ensures equity. It's ideal, it takes a while, and it's part of the planning process. So let's see in the next slide what this looks like. Let's build it out somewhat. And this is just one pathway. So this is just the ag business and production systems pathway. There are several others as your district or the district you work in has selected. So this is really focused on growing techniques, as you can imagine. So this builds in all those components, right, from infrastructures to resources, but focus. And I know that Carol Smathers is on the call, so I'm calling out growing teachers throughout the seasons as a curriculum support and PD support for teachers and getting that implemented. And that's a resource that could be started tomorrow. So I'm excited to see you, Carol, on the call. That's great. Michael, would you be able to share a little bit about what's happening in one of the corridors within CPS?
Sure. So I'm going to start with the high school. Aiken High School is in one of our corridors. We are moving to a corridor model. Students are still going to have choice as far as the high school that they go to. However, one of the things that I think all of us are aware of that's going on with public education, at least, is shrinking funding. And we spend millions, tens of millions upon tens of millions of dollars a year in transportation. Our general fund budget is about $650 million typically, and that doesn't include federal grant money. But we spend out of our general fund a very high amount on transportation. Cincinnati's not geographically easy to get from point A to point B. It's a hilly city, and public transportation sometimes just doesn't work. So it's yellow bus. And so the idea is to move to a middle school model. We did not have middle schools for a couple decades. The students were either in K through 8s or 7 through 12s. And so now we have 6 schools that are middle school / junior highs, depending on their grade bands. And so in the Aiken corridor, College Hill Fundamental Academy moved from a K through 6 to a K through 5. A new middle school opened, Pleasant Hill Academy, which used to be an elementary school that was a K through 6. They're now 6 through 8. And so College Hill will feed into Pleasant Hill Middle School, which then will feed into Aiken High School if students choose that. Aiken has a very strong agriculture program. Cynthia's going to show you a picture here in a little bit, an aerial view, but very partner based, very ag business and production based. They have animals, they have growing capabilities, all kinds of connection with partners, with the city, with our food dining services of our own district. We could talk for like hours about that. But what we are building, and literally we are building this right now. We're so excited about this. Pleasant Hill Middle School's focus is social justice being an upstander. But we want career tech in all of our middle schools, which is different for us because we don't have middle schools. So I was asked what would work. And so obviously agriculture would be the desire, but how do we connect agriculture to social justice? Well, Aiken already does that. Aiken looks at food insecurities. You can go to an Aiken high school parent conference night and they're giving away food. All of our schools in our district, almost without exception, are very, very high socioeconomic factored schools. Most of our schools receive free lunch because of our very, very high poverty in our district. Cincinnati is among the top centers of poverty in the country on a consistent basis. So Aiken does this. So at Pleasant Hill, we have an urban agriculture middle school course that will look at food insecurities, food deserts. Why is it, in urban areas we have less food opportunities as far as fresh foods and all of that. But our dream, and again, we're working on this, is to have students from College Hill K through 5 working with students from Pleasant Hill 6 through 8, working with students from Aiken 9 through 12 on the same project at some point. We cannot do that without partners. So everything that we've talked about here today, we cannot do without partners, which make up most of this webinar. So we are extremely excited about this. And hopefully in a future webinar, we'll be able to say, this is what we've done. And here's a very specific example with this.
I do see that we're getting to a time frame where we want to get to questions as well. And I did notice that some folks were already answering those questions that were in the previous slide. So
that's great.
Perfect. Yes. I cannot read. This is my weekend reading. I can't wait. So Michael is talking about Aiken High School. So that is the urban farm that is now starting to do food production. They have been able to now separate the animals from the plants and things like that, that will allow them to be GAP certified. So this is an industry recognized credential in action. We are actually applying for a new credential. So that's a whole nother topic area. So what will happen is the school farm will be GAP certified, just like a farmer, and just like the food service would procure from a farmer, they will procure from Aiken High School. And this is a food safety and meets food safety standards. That is, in essence, a garden to cafe where students are selling the food they grow to the food service department. So this is perfect for that work-based learning model that Michael talked about. This nurtures these internal partnerships with food service. We have a beautiful relationship between interpartners, partnerships within school districts. There will be a resource available that won't just reach Aiken. It will be available to school districts throughout the nation. If your food service operation wants school gardens to be GAP certified. The best part of this is when students graduate, they are job ready with these food safety skills. In the next slide, so this is your call to action, so to speak. And this is something you can go ahead and add to the chat. I'm not sure if we, some of you answered this already, but where is and what is your next step? Make that connection tomorrow, next week sometime. So if it is just simply going to the state education department's website to look up what credentials exist, go to the school CTE or vocational school that's beyond the school district, right? Check and see what existing, I see Mike nodding his head. I hope I'm giving the right information here. Just that simple step will really inform and drive your next step and decision and part of this process. So go ahead and add to chat maybe what your next action item is. And speaking about one of those items, and thanks for putting that back up there for people to see. But in the next slide, and being mindful of time here, I just have a couple more things I want to say, and then we'll open up for questions. This is our an example of a next action step. And the way our committee works, Mike and I and city officials, ag ed educators, very important component of this committee, work-based partner organizations, and we are getting those FFA students involved in this committee as the school year progresses. But what we're doing, we have another resource that just came out, the Green Workforce Landscape Analysis. I gave you a code here for you to access this, and basically what this does for us to help drive the work is identify those in-demand jobs, the skills needed, and then also those barriers that we need to address here in Cincinnati. All right, and last but not least, we all know and do it, I know we do, engage our students. But stop talking about FFA, or maybe it's a superintendent student leadership, or maybe it's a environmental club at individual schools. There's where the connection can be made to those groups, student groups that are already intact, so that you can tap into those students to make sure that they're part of committees and the decision-making processes when they're choosing their careers based on interest and needs. Last but not least, and I'll end with this, is that sharing impact. Sharing is really about systems transformation, not just within your school district. See, there's Mike, I got him in. I pulled him in doing some other presentation. So Mike's at the head of this. But what we're doing when we share within our school district, when we share with other school districts, is that what we're doing is that we're not creating transformation just with the one school district. We are creating transformation throughout the nation.
And
And
if
that happens through all of you.
and Cynthia, if I could just make a comment, and so appreciative of like everything that you've done. And I know there's a thread going on right now, which is really pertinent to, I think, partners and schools with what you just pointed out. I just wanted to just say something real quick. So I don't want anybody to think that Cincinnati Public has always been so open to a school farm or animals. There's a thread going on in the chat where people are talking about how sometimes the school system is the obstacle. So the partners want to do something, the school system doesn't, but for a variety of reasons. And I just want to comment on that. I can remember when I was a high school principal back in 2019, a school had chickens. One school had chickens, and they were immediately removed because somebody in charge, and it wasn't the superintendent at the time, it was an assistant soup, didn't like chickens. A community member complained, we don't like the noise, so the chickens were gone. Well, now we're at the point where we have chickens like in multiple school yards. Aiken has alpacas, cows, a cow, sorry. They have a variety of fowl, not just chickens. And so what it takes is it's getting the right people to be the champions to get an inroad to get this going. And if it was, and I will say, and I need to toot Cynthia's own horn because she doesn't toot it herself. If it wasn't for Cynthia helping us to drill down school by school for a list of schools to make sure that things that have been grown don't get like mowed over in the summertime and all of that. And then in the picture on the left above student involvement, the lady who's kind of you can see the side of her face, third person over from the right. She's a school board member that has helped us push agriculture so far. So it's finding a champion within the district, a champion outside the district, spreading out those champions, and then it's really just tackling situation by situation and getting those champions. And Cynthia is one of those. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, one of our champions is, and I'm going to call her out because I love her, is Mika Owens, a council member for Cincinnati, City of Cincinnati. Go Mika.
Wow. Well, that's awesome. And thanks, Mike, for responding to and acknowledging that thread in the chat. Really appreciate it. This is probably one of the most insightful chat I've seen in a while. So thank you for engaging in the chat. And we will do our best to review some of these comments afterwards as well and try to follow up. We'll share our contact information in the chat. But this is our time in the webinar where we want to hear from you. So you can share more in the chat about what more you need to know. What are your next steps that you're exploring? Maybe something that you've heard that Mike and Cynthia shared earlier. I know we're coming up on time, so I did want to just share, we put together this really quick Google form where you can just share any ideas, feedback about this webinar as well, and other questions that you may have for the speaker. So we're going to open it up right now for Q&A. And I know there's about 100 of you all in the Zoom room here, so we'll try to navigate this space a little bit here. If you have a question that hasn't been addressed, I know many of them haven't been. I do have a couple questions that I made a note of, but wanted to open it up for someone to unmute. So if you could raise your hand and I'll pick the first person I see. If you have a question that you want to verbalize here that maybe Mike and Cynthia can address, I'd be happy to invite you to hop on the mic. Raise your hand if you have a question you'd like to ask. Otherwise, I do have some questions that I listed here as I was navigating the chat. Looks like that's okay. I have one question. The first one I had listed was, what are some examples of positions in a green workforce? I think, Mike, you kind of talked a little bit about that, but maybe something more concrete for folks if you have examples of green positions. Oh, and we have one person who raised their hand, but Mike, go ahead and answer that question first.
Yeah, and I think Cynthia may have to piggyback on this. I'll be really quick. And so, in our reference in the Cincinnati area, this is a common phrasing that is used with the city of Cincinnati. It's in our work with them. Is it's a certain amount of green jobs by the year 2028, I think it is. And so that could include anything from working on a farm to solar to, I think, even economically friendly power is thrown in there as well. Cynthia, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that.
No, and I think that was reiterated in the chat, that green jobs, I think a district, and if you're going about this work, is defining green, what a green job is, and then gathering those resources to support that, like the landscape analysis that the city of Cincinnati did, and there may be one in your city without even realizing it. And then going from there is really identifying based on the strengths and the needs of a district. Is for us, we really, and this was selfish on my part, being having a school garden background for many, many years, my own school garden, greenhouse, school garden programs is ag ed, and that I felt like it was transformative. So I think it is based on what meets the population needs and the community.
Love those responses, and they're customizable to your community and the work that you're doing. I know we have 2 minutes before we close, but I did want to open it up for Sierra to unmute and maybe ask question, and we'll close from there. Sierra, go for it.
Hi, my name is actually Rebecca Stetson. Sierra is one of my colleagues, and I used her Zoom link to join the meeting. But
thanks for being here.
yeah, me and some of my coworkers are on. We collectively run a nonprofit called Farmily out of Northern Nevada, and we teach solely Boys and Girls Club kids through after-school programming. And so I'm interested in finding out what type of funding sources outside of traditional grants folks are using to have a revenue stream to support what they're doing.
Oh, that's a good question. Just let me say from the school system standpoint. So those kids all go to school somewhere. So if it's a school that has funding that touches on this area, I can only tell you what I can do. There are many things that our students do with community organizations, and let's say it's at Aiken on the farm. We pay for all of that. So it's not like if they're working with a community organization, the community organization has to come in with seeds or has to come in with equipment or whatever. So we try to pay for what we can pay for, as long as it is connected to the curriculum and as long as it's students at our particular school. So depending on what is available in Northern Nevada as far as school-based programming, that may be a route to go. And then Cynthia, I'm sure, may have something else to add to that.
I'm so glad you called that out, because there are CT resources in place. The joint funding and partnerships, like I just finished up a partnership with the city health department and putting in a traffic garden. That was a joint funding opportunity. And then partners do already, that's part of their mission, where they set out to support school districts with funding. There also may be an education, a school education foundation that we can tap into, as well as those PTO, parent teacher, for those smaller projects.
Well, thank you, Cynthia and Mike. Thank you all for the ongoing chat, the question from Rebecca and colleagues. I have Mike and Cynthia's contact information here in front of you. They'll also be happy to drop their emails in the chat. Always happy to connect. Thank you for joining. I'd love to invite you all to join our network, the National Farm to School Network. If you're not already, I also am sharing my contact information here. Trisha at farmtoschool.org, and scan the QR code here if you're not a partner already and would like to do so. And last but not least, I just want to say thank you again to everybody who joined us on this call. Stay in touch, and we hope to continue this conversation. It looks like a very energized topic here, and I hope to see some of you or many of you at the upcoming 10th National Farm to Cafeteria Conference in New Mexico. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.